Hi everybody, afternoon, how are you? Welcome along, thank you, I'm Simon, we'll get started. So I'm acutely aware that I'm standing between you and between a hangover at you and the beers at the end. So if it's all right with you, I'm going to err on the side of brevity and crack through this so that you guys can get downstairs to the beers. Does that sound okay? Anyone object? Put your hands up if you object to that idea. Yes, very keen man. You and I can have a session afterwards, one-on-one. That's great. Everyone else, that's fine. Hi. Oh, I'm scratching. Yeah. I'll walk slow. This is Daniel, everybody. Yeah, I can take that off. These guys know who I am now. That's fine. Thanks. Talk amongst yourselves. Great. Excellent. Less scratchy? Cool. All right, what am I talking about? I'm going to tell you a story today. It's the afternoon. You're very tired and drowsy. You've just had lunch. I want to maybe teach you something, but there's no pressure. If you don't learn anything, that's fine. And then I'm going to ask you for a favor at the end, so be prepared for that. So I'm going to talk about TradeMe. Everyone been on TradeMe here? Anyone who's not been on TradeMe, raise your hand. That one guy again who wants to talk to me for an hour, that's cool. Okay, so everyone knows what TradeMe is. This is probably familiar to most of you. You've seen this before. Have you seen this one? I'm just saying you may later if you want to. Yeah, that guy in the middle there, the two listings in the middle there are going to have a bad day on the weekend when they realize that the price has dropped by half that now. So, yeah, if you win a prize, you can also list it on TradeMe if you want to. There's demand there. So this is our touch site. This is a site that we send smart devices to, and it's probably something you'll see more of in the future. TradeMe is a pretty cool place to work. And the concept I want to get across, I'm not going to tell you the history of TradeMe, you've probably heard of it before, but one of the things that we're really keen on and really keep an eye on is scale, right? So scale is really important to us. And to give you an indication of scale, here are the listings that were listed on TradeMe between 1999, when we first started, and 2001. So that's a nice kind of curve, getting up to around 3,500, 4,000 listings per day for those 2 years. So that was then, and that little red box is that same graph up until the end of last year, or mid last year. So we've pretty much been growing all the time, and that's something that I want you to bear in mind as we go through these slides. We're pretty much always growing, and the site is always getting busier and busier. To give you an idea of how busy the site is, there are our site stats. I took those from 2 days ago. Interesting stat there, 10 minutes times 718,000 people who visit each day is 13.5 years of time spent on TradeMe each day. That's quite a long time. That's almost as long as TradeMe's been around for. Here's some stats for you stats nerds. Every second we do lots of stuff. Every month we sell 3,000 chickens. Anyone bought a chicken on TradeMe? Yes. How did it go for you? Did you get a positive feedback? Excellent, lovely. So that was one of the 3,000 chickens we sell. That's fantastic. This is a chart I pulled this morning from our traffic metric analysis system. Who can tell me what those two dips are? Race 1 and race 2. So TradeMe is a really good barometer of what the New Zealand internet public are doing. We can see from these charts, which are on the wall when you walk into the office in the morning, what kind of happened overnight. We walked in one night a few years ago, and there was this massive dip at, I think it was 8:30 at night. Like, what happened? We checked all our servers, checked all our metrics. It was the final of Outrageous Fortune. It had a measurable impact on our sales for that period. The Rugby World Cup was also pretty cool because there was the opening ceremony, huge dip, big spike while the opening ceremony finished, and then the All Blacks played, big decrease in traffic, and then spike at halftime, big decrease second half, and then back to normal again. And you can kind of set your watch by it, pretty much. That pattern there, without the two races in there, is pretty much what you see on TradeMe all the time. It's yeah, very consistent. So I said I was going to tell you a story. Hands up if you were here in 2011. All right. Oh, cool. Fantastic. So did you come to my session in 2011? Hands up if you did. A few. All right, cool. So for those of you who didn't, I'm going to step you back through the mists of time. And I told you then how we build things. So through the magic of PowerPoint transitions, We time traveled with Ripple back to the slide deck of 2011, where I told you at TradeMe we had one big pool of developers and testers, and they look like this. That is literally them. No, it's not. Maybe it is. So we just had a big pool of developers and testers, and they're kind of all mixing around and doing their good thing, and they've been doing that for a while. We had about 21 staff at that time in dev and test. This is what they look like. We had these things called cross-functional teams, which is an interesting term. Some people refer to the team as being cross-functional. Some people see it as a team of cross-functional individuals. We see this as a team of specialists that work cross-functionally together. And we had kind of 3 devs and a tester, and then we had some people who we went to ask for help every now and then. And that was cool, and there was a team there. And we had these things called cycles, and I was really excited about them. I told you guys about them, and I said they're amazing because we had 3 of them, and we had 3 teams, which meant I could make a chart that looked like this. I could say, wow, we deploy every 3 weeks. One team gets a go, and the other teams wait. And you have this beautiful, nice curve that was all mathematical and symmetrical. Problem was, 2 problems really. It wasn't very agile, or for those of you who went to Steve's chat yesterday, it wasn't very agile. And it didn't scale. So as soon as we had a 4th team, how do you fit a 4th deploy in a 3-week, everyone deploys each week cycle? We started to find that things were going wrong for us. Projects were taking a really long time to get finished. We didn't know where our projects were at. People were asking, when's it going to be done, Simon? And I couldn't really give a good answer. And the worst thing is, if we did give an answer, we couldn't trust them. I could say, well, it'd be 3 months. Everything can be done in 3 months, right? We couldn't trust that. Sometimes it took a little bit longer than 3 months. And we had this problem hanging over our heads. Who's in a dev shop here? You guys pretty much devs-centric kind of IT guy? So yeah, we had the business talking about, let's just add some more developers to the problem, right? Whose base unit of resource is the developer? Hands up. We'll just get a couple of devs, it'll be fine. We'll smash it out in 3 months. Yeah, let's go have some pizza. Yeah? Just add developers. So that's not the problem. So with the greatest respect to Steve Ballmer, it's developers, testers, DBAs, product owners, and agile coaches is what we need, not developers. Thank you. This is part of my job interview for the new CEO position. How did I go? No? All right. Thank you. This is, I used to live in Canary Wharf in London, and this was just down the road. If you've seen it, yeah, people in London, it's crazy. It's art, though. It's not actually functional. It doesn't do anything. But we had problems like this. We didn't know if we were starting or stopping or going or what were we doing. And the business were kind of going, well, if we're not going to know, we don't know how long it's going to take us, so we're going to change our mind all the time because that project that was going to take 2 weeks is now taking 3 months. And if we knew it was going to take 3 months when we started, we wouldn't do it because we've got this other thing that we have to do now, and there's this deadline for this thing. So we're going to start and stop and go green and red and amber and all those sort of things. It wasn't that great. We also had this problem, and it was us growing up, right? TradeMe was growing, and when I started, there was 100 and something people, and now there's 300 and something people, and we hit the Dunbar number pretty quickly, right? The Dunbar number is where you sort of kind of know everyone and recognize them by their face and go, hey Joe, how you doing? How's the kids and that sort of thing. You get beyond a certain size and you don't know people's names and faces and things. It becomes a challenge to communicate. And the challenge was we've always been pretty proud of our culture, and we pride ourselves on it. And we wanted to kind of balance that sort of challenge of being creative and doing whatever we wanted with this process that we needed to put in place because we were growing too big. And this is hat tip to our agile coach, Sandy, whose slide I stole without asking. So, Sandy, if you're watching, I'm sorry. I won't do it again, I promise. So we needed to be more agile. We needed to be able to scale. So we thought, agile, scale. Who can we ask who might be able to help us? And we spoke to the guys at Spotify, which is where my slide topic, or my presentation topic comes into play. It should be maybe from Spotify to FedEx, because I've done it the other way around, but that's cool. So Spotify are an interesting company. You guys know who they are? Everyone's pretty much aware of Spotify. They do like streaming on demand music and like radio stations and all that cool stuff. Yeah, we really like them. They're quite similar to TradeMe in many ways. They're about the same size as us now, although they're going to be huge. They're already becoming huge. And they've had similar problems with scale. They're more of a tech-focused organization than us. Pretty much everything they do is tech. There's a little bit of kind of ancillary stuff. Whereas we're kind of half and half tech, customer support, admin, commercial functions, and things like that. And they produced this document, which, I don't know, has anyone seen this document? It did the rounds kind of a year ago. Yeah, a few people? Cool, nods and things. We saw it and we loved it. We loved the hell out of it. We thought it was fantastic. And so we, we liked it so much we stole it. And we asked them nicely, we said to them, hey, can we borrow your document because we think that would really work for us. So what I'm going to talk to you now is what we've done, how we've taken this document and turned around some of those problems we had around scaling Agile. Yeah, if you want to read it, that's the link there. Check it out. I'll pause the slide for this photos going on. That's great. So scaling Agile at TradeMe looks a little bit like this. So that was theirs. Ours is a bit more colorful and it's bigger and kind of more gritty. But it's effectively the same thing. It's dividing our teams down into areas where they can just kind of do whatever they want. And the kind of primary unit of this model, this Agile model that we've adopted, is the squad. And the squad is designed to feel like a mini startup. So TradeMe was a startup back in the day. Is anyone here working for a startup? Just a show of hands, maybe? No one is working for a startup? Oh yeah, a couple, cool. All right, so it's quite different working in a big 300-person company to working in a startup, right? You can understand the difference. We were good at being a startup, and we were good at solving problems that, as I showed you in that chart at the start, a little bit of the chart was our scaling problems for the first 2 years and then growing up to 2013. We were scaling well in our technology, but maybe not so much in our project teams. So we decided, let's make these squads and make them feel like a little startup. They can do whatever they need to do to get the job done. If you went along to Ben and Dave's session earlier this morning, Dave talked about continuous deployment and being able to just let the teams do whatever they need to do to get the job done by deploying code whenever they want. That's the Valhalla we want to get to, and we're working towards that. They should have all the skills they need to be able to build things. They need development, test, agile skills. They need product ownership. They need everything that they need to do for that project to build the stuff they're building. And it can be different from different squad to squad, right? Some squads, they need certain things. They maybe don't need designers, but they need lots of test. Others need more development, resource, and that sort of thing. And yeah, the key thing about the continuous deployment, they can see things to the end. They know they don't have to depend on anyone else to get stuff done. And their resources there is in quotes, because at the end of the day, we're all people, not actually resources. So this is what a squad looks like. This is the mobile squad. I just highlighted there one of them. You can see there's 4 blobs there. Those 4 blobs, there's two devs, 1 tester, and a designer in those blobs. The red's design, green is test, and blue is dev. And there's kind of some rules we've put in place that we've sort of taken from what Spotify sort of espoused and turned into our own. And that is they must be co-located. So all the teams or the squads have to be co-located. It doesn't matter necessarily that one squad is there and one squad is there, just as long as everyone in that squad is together in the same place. They should be cross-functional in that the squad itself should have all the functions it needs to do that job. So all the skills in that squad to get the job done. And it should be pretty small. We don't want to have squads of 10, 20. That would be too big. We like small, discrete kind of... 2 years ago I said we had 3 devs, 1 tester. We called them the 2 pizza teams, the people you can feed with 2 pizzas. Kind of the same thing here with this. We want to keep small teams. And they should be self-organizing. So there's some rules, some frameworks that we put in place around the nature of the squad, but they are able to be defined by the squad. So if they decide that one rule that they've adopted to start with is not right, they can change it. We sort of embrace the Kaizen model of continuous improvement of our process, and kind of any part of the system is ripe for change. And what that means is as you create squads, one squad might go in that direction with their set of how they organize themselves, another might go that way. They might adopt Scrum, they might adopt Kanban. Most of them are sort of tending towards a kind of a Scrumban, Kanbum type model, which is cool. And the other thing about that is it's also self-policing. So if you've got someone in the team who's kind of like, yeah, just maybe cruising, it's less on me as a manager to come in and say, hey, you need to pull your weight. The squad will do that. I need to step in if it's really bad. But the squad will kind of say, hey, we need this from you. And it usually doesn't come up. So that's a really good thing that comes out of having teams and squads. Here is a squad. This is our, dare I say the name, it's our iPad squad. Shh. They're working on an iPad app. And there's only a few of us, right? There's 5 in that picture, a couple of devs, a tester, a designer, and me as a product owner looking shifty. Here's another one of our mobile squads, the other unmentionable device that we work on. Again, a few more people in this squad because we're working on something slightly different, and it's a bit more, it requires a bit more development resource at the moment. But again, we're all working together, co-located. Everyone has boards, and I mentioned Scrumban, which is kind of like a combination between Scrum and Kanban. Who's using some agile format of some kind? Whatever you want to call it. Yeah, cool, most people. Steve Forte did a couple of sessions yesterday on agile, which was really good. Talked about kind of merging whatever sort of flavor of agile you like that gets the job done for you. This is what we've done. It's kind of a scrum band. And this is one squad. This is another squad. They like to have swim lanes. Another one doesn't, but they like to have a kind of a timeline. And then a touch squad, they've got all sorts of things there as well, and key deploy dates and things like that are in there also. They're all pretty similar, but each squad has got the ability to define its own rules. Its definition of done, how they get stuff built and out on site. So squads are kind of the base unit of the agile process that we've adopted from Spotify, and then tribes is the grouping of those squads into sort of functional areas. So for us, mobile is a tribe made up of, in this case, 4 squads, filled with a bunch of folk there. I should point out that these ones on the left are kind of like floating resources that go across all the squads, and so that's me. That I'm sort of product owner across the top, and we sort of broken some of the rules that Spotify sort of put out there because we had adopted their kind of methodology of just change stuff if it doesn't work for you, and we did. So this is kind of different from what they do, but it's working for us. And each tribe is sort of responsible for an area, and so the key thing I mentioned at the start is you should be able to affect change in that area. So all the squads can rely on each other to help with the overall purpose of the mission of that tribe, which is to get mobile humming, get it really, really great. And each squad has its own mission as well that kind of leads into the overall mobile strategy. This is our head of projects, a very happy man now, not so a few months ago, because we've started to adopt this process, and now we have, we can say to the business, hey, you've asked for this thing, it's going to take us probably this number of sprints with this degree of accuracy, velocity is this. As Steve talked about yesterday, we can say, we can either slip time or scope, but those numbers are able to be communicated to the business. It's not just 3 months, see you in a few weeks kind of thing. It's now, look at our charts, here's our velocity, here's how we're tracking, and this guy is very happy as a result. And the final kind of thing that we've adopted from the Spotify model is this concept of chapters, which is when you are split into squads, the danger is that you stop communicating with your peers. You might be focused on the task at hand, and chapters kind of address that, and they are cross-cutting functional teams, if you like. So that's the chapter of devs in mobile. So if any dev in mobile has a problem they want to resolve, they will hit up their chapter lead or get together in their chapter meetings they have every now and then and just talk about some problems they've got. Maybe it's a new version of Android that's just been released, or iOS, or whatever it might be, and they need to tackle it, and they want to share the work and make sure that we don't duplicate effort. And that kind of spans out across the main site as well. So I'm just showing mobile, but we do have this for the rest of TradeMe also. And obviously things like web developers all communicating in chapters. We have systems engineers communicating in chapters to some degree. And we are sort of rolling this out still in process. So we don't have this all set up. It's kind of working as we go. This is one of the chapter meetings. This is the test chapter from mobile having a lean coffee session. Which is pretty cool. Lean coffee, for those of you who haven't done it before, is effectively a self-organizing meeting over coffee where you can talk about the issues that are affecting the squad. Again, this is all self-organized, and the team chose to use this method. If they don't like it in time, they'll change it. And the other thing that I wanted to mention in changing over to this kind of squad-based model is our tooling requirements. And Dave and Ben talked about it this morning a little bit, where we couldn't do this with some of the old tools. So again, 2 years ago, I was talking about how we use Subversion and this thing called Package Manager and a bunch of things, and how we did our merging and how we pushed out to production, and it was all fancy and amazing. It's still fancy and amazing, but we don't use any of those tools anymore. We use something else. We've switched to Mercurial for our source control management, so we can do distributed version control and just branch and merge. I was going to say easily, but I'll just leave it at branch and merge. We also, back in the day, had 3 test environments, right? One for each of those cross-functional teams. So that's cool, one each, that's great. Now we have 20, and we can spin them up as often as we need to. They're all kind of virtual and cool. So long as we have the storage and the time from the network guys, we can do that. And we can push code to those environments really, really easily. There's a web interface we've built that we can just push codes out. And the testers are in control of that. They handle where a given build goes to, what test environment it goes to, and they can pull it in and out of that environment in seconds. So a couple of lessons, I suppose, this is the kind of things that I can teach you maybe a little bit, is jog, don't run, which is kind of just saying walking is too slow, running is too fast. Somewhere in the middle is how you want to approach this, as we found. We didn't want to go, hey guys, we've just read this new Spotify document, hooray, we're all squads, yay, let's go party. That would be too fast, but we also didn't want to go, we're going to do this over the next 3 years, and it's going to be awesome, and there's going to be a committee, and we're going to do all these things and study and send people off to Spotify in Stockholm and, you know, do these big white papers. We didn't want to do that. That was too slow. So instead, we've started to roll these out, and we're doing them sort of 4 squads at a time. And the mobile squad was, the tribe was first with those 4 squads, and now we're rolling it out into our main site and a few other places. We also have teams here in Auckland, down in Christchurch, and in Wellington, so we're also juggling that the geography challenge as well. So our first Auckland-based squad is spinning up very shortly, the Christchurch team shortly after that, and then the rest of the Wellington squads will be forming. So we're not going as fast as we can, but we want to make sure that we give every squad the best chance of success. If you think of creating a startup, right, you don't just want to, if you were an investor, you wouldn't want to just invest in 9 startups and then you know, watch them all succeed or fail. You probably want to invest some time in maybe 2 or 3. Similar for us. These are little startups for us, and they're working on areas of the site that we care a great deal about. And we want to make sure they have the best chance of success. Space is really important. Really, really important. So that co-location thing, we had teams kind of scattered everywhere, and we had testers in one building, we had developers in another building, we even had people kind of overseas working on maybe a tester overseas or a developer overseas. We still have remote workers like that, but they typically are managed in a separate process. But space is really important, and we've had to move furniture, knock down walls, put up all sorts of things in the pursuit of having everyone work together. So we wanted to have all of our mobile squads together as squads, and we wanted to have all those squads together as a tribe, which required kicking the CEO actually out of his seat and across the road, which was fun. But he was keen to do it. This is our office in Wellington, by the way, just as an aside. First workplace slide in New Zealand. We are hiring. Yeah. We should. Yeah. We have a role open as chief slide engineer. That's fine. And we have one of our values, our TradeMe values. Number 6 is hire and grow great people, and this is important too. So not everyone is kind of geared up for this kind of agile approach, and some people, you know, are resistant at first and maybe adopt it. One of the key things for us is we typically are slow to hire, and we like to grow people by putting them in situations where they can learn. And the startup incubation aspect of the Spotify model is great for this. It's really good to give people a chance to have complete control over their success or failure. And so this is important. Our value number 7 is also important, which is don't be a dick, but that's kind of important to everything. All right, cool, that's Spotify. That's the Spotify. I want to talk to you about innovation, because they're related, and we couldn't kind of separate them without sort of overlapping. So the innovation bit. So we innovate at TradeMe in a number of different ways. The key one is that anyone can have an idea at TradeMe. If you've got a good idea, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter how long you've been at the company, if it's a good idea, it's a good idea, and we like to hear about it. So people send emails to us saying, you know, it would be really great if, or I just got an email from a member and they said that this sucks, we should fix that thing. And they get pushed through. That's the kind of the basis of our change management is an idea from someone. We turn those ideas into maybe projects, but we also give our tech teams some pet project time when they can, if they can squeeze it in, to work on stuff that's maybe not strictly their day job, but is related in some way. Maybe it's good for the site, or maybe it's good for their own career development, their own professional development. They're trying a new technology. And we've had a number of stories where someone has worked on something that isn't kind of a project in the sense of it's been signed off and it's on our roadmap. And TradeMe Touch, that screenshot I showed you with the cheeky slide of Windows Surface RT on there, was actually started as a pet project by one of our very keen developers in March. And now it's got 1.1 million unique visits a month. And it's being auto-redirected from the main site if you're on a user agent that we think is appropriate. And yeah, that's a really good example of someone's passion turning into actually a really useful thing for us. Anyone know what this is? Yeah, Twitter, exactly. So this is the diagram that started Twitter, and they're just about to IPO. The news came out this morning, they're filing for their IPO, which is cool. Twitter was formed by a company called IDEO, which was doing something in streaming. They wanted to do something else because they needed to pivot, and so this was the initial idea that now became Twitter. So we think it's important that we foster the similar sort of things. It might not be directly related to what you're doing in your day job, but it might be a good idea and we want to pursue it. It might help you, or it might be good for us in many ways, like Twitter was for IDEO. And a shout out to anyone from Marker Metro here? No. Well, shout out to those guys anyway, because the other way we innovate is by partnering with really smart companies. We looked around and found that these guys were really smart in the Windows 8 and the Windows Phone development space, and they built this toolbox for us for Windows Phone 7.1 back in the day, which is still available now, and it is quite handy if you use Windows devices, desktop or phone. So shout out to those guys. Thank you for helping us with that. The other thing we do, and this is where FedEx comes into it, is we have, anyone know, sorry, Daniel Pink, before I continue? This guy is the author of a book called Drive. He has spoken at TED, and he's a smart guy. You probably recognize him from this YouTube animation that was kicking around a wee while ago about how you incentivize high-performing, high-tech resources, not with cash necessarily, but with success and empowering them to do stuff. Here's a clip.
Atlassian is an Australian software company, and they do something incredibly cool. A few times a year, they tell their engineers, go for the next 24 hours and work on anything you want. As long as it's not part of your regular job, work on anything you want. So the engineers use this time to come up with a cool patch of code, to come up with an elegant hack. Then they present all of these stuff that they've developed to their teammates, to the rest of the company, in this wild and woolly all-hands meeting at the end of the day. And then, being Australians, everybody has a beer. They call them FedEx days. Why? Because you have to deliver something overnight. It's not bad. It's a huge trademark violation, but it's pretty clever.
Yeah, so it's now redacted day. So Atlassian changed that. They were asked nicely by FedEx if they could change the name from FedEx Day. We still call it FedEx Day because we haven't been approached by FedEx yet, but we do a similar thing. So every now and then we get together and we put down tools for 24 hours and build stuff. And we conveniently had our last FedEx Day 3 weeks ago in Wellington. So I've got some stuff from that event. But the reason why we do FedEx Day is again, the same reason we do pet projects and things is we need to have downtime from our day job. We need to get off the treadmill of just the daily grind and do something else. And it's amazing what we can do in 24 hours. So this is a little clock that I wrote that sits on the screens when FedEx Day is about to kick in. And my camera's got scratch on it, which is why every screenshot you'll see now has got that little red blob in it. Don't get an iPhone, kids. It's not good. And so we have this guy. Our FedEx Day was a tools-themed FedEx Day. What that meant was that we got teams together to produce a project that would deliver value, a tool that would deliver value for some part of the business. And you had to go and talk to the business area and say, hey, I'm a dev and I've got some test resource and I've got these other skills. What can I do to make your life easier? And the idea was to add some value that maybe you didn't know and talk to parts of the business that you maybe hadn't worked with. We did this over 3 cities, so we had Link running, we had our Auckland office and our Christchurch office dialed in, and we had a team, actually a couple of teams in Auckland, one team in Christchurch working on this, heaps of teams in Wellington, all building tools for other parts of the business to use. Every hour, that annoying sting would be playing once the FedEx Day had started. From 4 p.m. on Thursday to 4 p.m. on Friday. And so the teams started at 4 p.m. 3 Thursdays ago, and then coded through the night. So we had teams that were working on very heavy back-end projects, maybe that integrated with our Active Directory system, others who would just build a kind of MVC web project, others that would do maybe an SSIS reporting server type report that was useful for an area of the business. All sorts of different things using different skills from across the business, development, test, even customer support, design, all sorts of things, working together in these mini teams, and they were rather like a little startup. And so that's why I linked these two things together in this presentation. We were learning from our adoption of the Spotify model that we could have these little startups that would produce value in a very short space of time. And they were doing the same things that we see in our Agile squads. And these are people who haven't actually been in Agile squads in many cases. This is one of our teams who spun up their own version of a sort of weekly burn down board, which was entirely their own devising. We didn't have any sort of coaching on that one. They all had little tasks they would chuck up. We had a kind of a Kanban style task management thing, and we put up the tasks that we needed to do and then move them across the board in the space of 24 hours. And you're having teams that would do like little stand-ups every maybe couple of hours just to see how things were going. So really taking that like iteration model and cramming it down to 24 hours. And it works. It works for the same reason it works over 2 weeks or whatever your iteration might be. You just have to spend a bit more time in the office. Again, we had mixed resources. We had development, we had test, we had design working together. Peer programming, we had all the kinds of things that you would see in a normal day's work, but it was just crammed down into 24 hours. We had pizza, I think about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, and we got heaps of pizzas in, and people pushed on through the night. I think, I'm not sure if he's here, but one of our developers slept on the couch. We had people camped up until like 6 in the morning working on stuff, and then handing their code over as their colleagues came in at 6, and they went to have a sleep for a couple of hours. And here's some of the things we built in 24 hours. So this is a thing called Happy Feed, and our customer support team thought this would be quite cool. It's a feed of just good news stories. Every now and then the customer support team gets kind of bad news stories, right? They get people ringing up and saying, "Where's my chicken? I haven't received my chicken yet." Or your site wasn't available because the yacht race was on, or whatever it might be. And we wanted to counterpoint that with just good news stories that we had from around the business or from members, and we just have that kind of providing a little happy feed for our customer support team. So if they got down, they could look over at the board and see something nice that someone's done. And anyone in the office now can go to a page on our intranet and suggest something nice that can go on that happy feed. A photo of a staff member saying, "Hey, this person was awesome." So in this case, Jane, one of our testers, did some cool stuff for our Android app release, and so she's on our feed. And that's pretty nice, and that just rotates through. We built a virtual receptionist. We don't really have a reception area at all. We have a kind of a waiting room, and you just page in to say who you want to meet. And we have people dropping off packages all the time. So the guys created an Android app that just sits in the foyer, and you can just say, "Hey, I'm here to drop off a package," or "I'm here to meet someone." This hooks into our Active Directory, and if you're here to meet someone, we can kind of tell you a little bit about the person you're trying to meet, enough to be able to find out that it's me, and then I'll get an SMS or an email or a phone call just saying, "Hey, someone's in the foyer for you," and I can then respond. And this is being rolled out to our foyer very, very, very soon. It's kind of cool. We built the Silverlight plugin a couple of years ago, which is just all our staff. And actually Paul down here in our dev team built this. And it pulled in all the data from a whole bunch of different disparate sources to group it together. So if you're a new starter at TradeMe, you can find out who's in your peer group, who's in your department, how long they've been at TradeMe, what their interests are. We built this group system where you can say, "I'm interested in football, I'm interested in lunchtime video games," or whatever it might be. And you can find people with like interests and associate with them on your first day if you want to. Or every now and then you might get an email from someone and you don't know who they are. So you just jump on here and go, "Oh, that person." Again, helping with that Dunbar number, right? You want to know who this person is. Spotify comes back full circle here. We built a web-based interface, a jukebox for Spotify, which I believe we might be open sourcing. So we'll chuck it up on GitHub or something at some point. So if you email me, I might be able to give you a link in a wee while. But basically, it's a system for queuing up music in the office. People can veto it. They can vote if they like the music. We have this recently played queue. Change the volume if you're an admin, and it just searches all of Spotify's catalog. It means our music choice in the office is way better than it was back when we had MP3s on a disk somewhere. This isn't being recorded, right? What's the statute of limitations? I don't remember. So yeah, now we're all legit with our music, which is great. And we use Spotify, which is kind of eating our own dog food kind of thing. We're eating someone else's dog food, I suppose. That's kind of weird. These guys built a table tennis out of a whiteboard, table tennis table out of a whiteboard, which is kind of cool. This is my favorite one. This is the one we built a year ago, which is a Wi-Fi light stick that we used to map in three-dimensional space the strength of our Wi-Fi, our free Wi-Fi around the office in Wellington. And so we did a slow time-lapse photography of the strength of our Wi-Fi using a stick which had LEDs on it, with zero LEDs being no Wi-Fi signal to, I think it was 40, maybe, I can't remember what the resolution was, but very high LED strength being good strength Wi-Fi, and then just slowly walked around the waterfront taking a time-lapse photo of it. So you can see in physical space what our Wi-Fi strength looks like. And this was inspired by, I think it was a Dutch art project. We thought we'd do it ourselves. But it's pretty cool. If you guys know Wellington, that's where our Wi-Fi stretches and kind of where the peaks and troughs are. There's our building and there's the Wi-Fi. So it's obviously a bit stronger, closer to the office, and then comes in and out as you get further away. So that's pretty cool, and that was a team that stayed up literally all night taking those photos. If you've been to Wellington, you know that it's pretty windy. To get a photo like that, a time lapse where, you know, for 5 minutes it's not blowing, so you can get a still photo, was pretty difficult, so that did take some doing. And then at the end we have a prize giving. So there is a kind of a lame trophy we give out, because we do like to sort of celebrate victory and success, but we don't want to overdo it. It's not about the winning, it's about taking part, of course. But we do have a little trophy, which is kind of cool. So that's kind of some example of what we do with FedEx, and I want to kind of wrap this back up again with the slides at the start, where the business is, tell me when this is going to be released. And so what happens here is, we do a FedEx day, and the boss says, why can't we do that every day? Why can't every day be a FedEx day? Same thing we do every day, Pinky. So the answer to that is many. One is that it's not every day that we work on a Greenfields project. It's not every day that we work all through the night until 4 p.m. for 24 hours. And it's not every day that we get pizzas in and, you know, supercharge everyone on sugary fizzy drink. But the idea is still true. Like we could do this every day. We could do this every iteration, certainly. We could certainly do this every project in a way, just by adopting that squad-based, agile Spotify model that we talked about at the start. Maybe not quite as extreme as some of those FedEx ideas, but the concepts that we're getting across in FedEx Day are the same concepts that we're trying to get across when we're adopting those models. And so we can say to the business, hey, you know how we did that stuff for FedEx Day in 24 hours? Well, we can apply the same idea, the same stand-up, the same team collaboration, the same total ability to control start to finish the whole process, from writing the first line of code to deploying the final thing at the end of the day. If you can have full control over that whole process, it's amazing what you can get done. It also speaks to our idea of Kaizen, right? So there's continual improvement. We always want to be just challenging ourselves. FedEx gives us the ability to pick up new tools. Maybe we want to try SignalR for the first time. Maybe we want to try a node-backed application, or maybe we want to do any number of new things that we just maybe can't get out into the main TradeMe application for whatever reason. This provides a little sandbox for us to try that stuff and to get good and better at those things, so that we can go to the business, hey, you know that thing we built in 24 hours? Well, we used SignalR for that, and wouldn't it be cool if we used SignalR for this thing on the site? We could do the same sort of thing. And we've got evidence now. We don't just kind of make it up because it's cool and new and ooh, shiny. And the other thing, that maybe the best thing, is that it's that sorbet, right? It's that mental sorbet. It's the downtime between projects. You want to have a palate cleanser for your brain. That's what FedEx Day is for us. It's the ability to kind of go, all right, normal day, normal project stops. Forget about that thing you're working on. Forget about those bugs, unless it's really important. Mainly forget about those bugs. Do the stuff and just do something different for a little while. Exercise other parts of your brain that you haven't exercised, and let's see what we can do. All right, I said I was plowing through, and I kind of am, which is cool. So I have a favor to ask of all you guys, and then we'll open to questions, because there was a bunch of questions in Ben's and Dave's topic we didn't get through. My favor is this. FedEx Day is pretty awesome. You can deliver a bunch of value in a very short space of time. We are a country, and we are a subset of the country, full of very smart people. The smart people in this room are very, very smart. And I'd like to borrow some of your brains for a while. So my favor is this. At some point in the next year or so, we're going to be asking Kiwi IT folk across the country to join in on a FedEx Day with us. And so my favor is, can you please ask your boss, your IT department, if you are head of an IT department, or if you are the boss, please let your teams take part in this. We want to do something good for Kiwis. We want to help Kiwis with some of those projects. So the projects we've come up with so far are sort of self-serving. They're about TradeMe. They're about kind of our own internal teams. We'd like to kind of challenge everybody out there in sort of IT land in New Zealand to help out and do things for charities, schools, organizations that maybe don't have the IT budget. You've probably all worked in an organization, or you've seen or heard of people who just have the most atrocious websites, or they have the biggest problems that could just, if they only had a little bit of time from smart people, we could solve some problems for those guys. And so my challenge to you is my favor I'm asking of you is, please help me and the team at TradeMe to help some of those folk out and give a little bit back to Kiwis around the country. And so there'll be a process we'll set up, and we don't have a website to sign up just yet, but we'll be getting there. So it's a little early, I know, for asking for a favor, but I thought this was a good platform to ask for your help. Please email me or follow me on Twitter, and when the time comes, I will send the call out and say, Geeks of New Zealand, unite, and help us do some good for organizations that are less well off than us. All right, that's my slide done in record time. I will open to questions. Please ask your questions. You, sir. Great question. So the question was, when people are coming in for FedEx Day, how do we pay them? So pretty much everyone at TradeMe is on salary. We don't have contractors, so they get paid their salary, and we don't typically pay overtime for that sort of stuff. We do feed and water and all that sort of thing, and yeah, it all kind of swings and roundabouts, really. Yeah. Yes. So how much pre-planning goes into a FedEx Day? A reasonable amount. So there's quite a lot of coordination of teams and making sure. So what we do is we send an email saying, we're going to have a FedEx Day, guys. Here's the theme. Here's what we want you to do. And there's like a little form that we get people to fill out. This time around, we talked about the tools. And we said there was a requirement for teams to get together and talk to each other and find out what they could build that was of value to another part of the business. So we put some guidelines in place around how to do that, and there was a bit of coordination around that, and so that was me and a few others coordinating that stuff. And then there's things like the mundane organization, things like getting the pizzas in and organizing the office to be open and making sure there was continuity for those bugs that were really important and all that sort of stuff. And because it was open to the entire company, we had to make sure that all the parts of the business that maybe weren't as easily able to drop tools for 24 hours had cover as well. So our customer support team, if they wanted to take part, then we need to have cover for those guys and all that sort of thing. So there's a bit of legwork, but by far the payback for that 24 hours is over and above any effort that's spent organizing it. It really is fantastic. Yes? Yeah, so the question is, do we do any sort of squad performance analysis? Do we track metrics in the squad? So yes, again, it's up to the squads a little bit. Because they're a little mini startup, you could think of them as being self-aware enough to know what they need to be tracking. So some squads will track things like, how can we improve our velocity? How can we avoid that break-fix cycle that Ben and Dave talked about as much in our iterations? Others may be saying things like, oh, we need a BA. How can we get a BA? And you imagine if you were a startup and you needed a BA, how would you get that done? You might go to venture capital to get funding. So it's sort of same thing happens to us as a squad might say to me or to our head of tech or someone in the kind of hiring roles. We need another head in tech to help us with this particular problem we have. And so each squad will work out what its own measures of success are, what its definitions of done are. And the short answer is yes, we measure a lot, but it's specific to each squad. Yeah. Sir? So we used to, before we did squads, we used to say everyone can change squads or change teams whenever they like, because we like them to kind of be not specialists, but generalists and work in all sort of places. We don't really do that anymore, other than when a new joiner starts at TradeMe, they typically go into one of our BAU teams. BAU teams are kind of the short, quick turnaround, could be any part of the site that a bug comes in for or a small feature request comes in for. And the reason we do that is to give people a taste of all parts of the TradeMe solution so they know kind of where things are, how things work, and they don't end up specializing too soon. But once they go into a squad, it's kind of like I said, it's a small startup, so you're sort of a company. And so people moving in and out of squads is possible. We certainly haven't said you can't do it, but in practice it hasn't happened. Yeah, people could, I suppose, resign from the squad and get hired by another squad, but that might be a bit weird. Yeah. Yes, the question is there any thought about the cost benefit of the FedEx Day itself? And yeah, if you made it a day or 2 days, would that be better? We don't really look at it at an ROI type with that kind of lens on it. It's not so much about the value that gets back. There certainly is that. If I'm pitching to our boss to say, hey, we need to stop the company for a day, then he sort of looks at me and says, are we going to get good value out of that? But it's not a financial value necessarily. There's a bunch of developers here today, you can ask the question, but I would argue they probably get a lot of value out of that isn't directly related to the value that we get as a company. But certainly for that, the tools one we just did, some of those tools are being used now and are literally saving money for us, or more importantly, are helping our members out. So one of the tools we built was a tool for our trust and safety team, who put bad guys away on the site. If you're a dodgy bugger on the site, we'll chuck you in jail. So we built a tool for them, which is actually helping make TradeMe a better place to trade, which is fantastic. So, there is definitely value in the output of those things. If we change it to 24 from 24 to 48 hours, would that make a difference? Yeah, probably. It'd be twice as costly in terms of we would lose a day of getting other stuff done. But yeah, I mean, eventually we want to get to like every day is a FedEx day, right? 2 weeks. But it just so happens that the projects that we handle are roadmap projects rather than self-organized ones. So. It tends to be techie, IT, geeky type thing. So the question was, do you have business people in there as well? It tends to be techie and IT and geeky, but not always. So we had one of our commercial managers running one of our teams, kind of setting the direction of one of the teams in last FedEx Day. So certainly it's available to anyone in the office. Anyone can take part if they want to. There's no barrier to that. It's not exclusively tech, but it just tends to be. Yes. So, yes, ma'am. Do we have any questions about the ownership or the IP of what comes out of FedEx Day? No, it's all TradeMe's code. Yeah, everyone's working for TradeMe, it's all ours. Yeah. So how tricky was it to get the business to accept it from the first time around? I wasn't here for the very first one. I came in for the second one, so I couldn't speak to that initial first breaking of the ice. It's definitely true to say that we went for a while without one because we were really focused on operational things. And so getting another one started when the momentum wasn't there was a bit harder than perhaps it would have been if we'd done it regularly. What I'd like to do is do them kind of 3 times a year, which is kind of a nice trade-off between time spent not doing projects and that sort of mental sorbet and the value we get out of them. So the gap between the last one and the one before it was a year. I'd like to do another one in sort of 2 or 3 months. And sort of the closer together they are, the more recent the last successful one was. And so I had one of our members of our exec say to me afterwards, "Oh, I forget how good these are. We should keep doing more of them." And so like, hold on to that thought, and I'll come back to you in 2 months and hope you still got the same thought. So yeah, that's the challenge. Any more questions? What's the coolest project that came out of FedEx Day? We had a shower light sensor. That was pretty cool. We have some showers in the office at TradeMe, and you could never tell if it was in use or not. So we installed a light sensor in it to tell if the light was on, which indicated someone was in the shower. We hooked that up to a web page and a little. There was an Ethernet cable running out of the shower. That was pretty cool. Yeah, actually, the very first FedEx Day we did, we had no constraints. It was like, do whatever the hell you like. And everyone went, well, I know TradeMe. I'm going to do stuff on the site that I've always wanted to do. There were some amazing things produced, but none of them made it to production because they just sort of were hacked together, and there were so many intricate parts of the site that we just simply couldn't push them out. They were like in contravention of all sorts of different business rules and various other things, but they were great. So I can't tell you what they are. Some of them did become roadmap items, and we used the ideas from FedEx to then seed the basis of those projects. But yeah, but that was probably the most elaborate. Those early ones are the most elaborate, but unsuccessful ultimately. Yeah. Any more questions? Yes.
Why have you increased your locations to
Because we're hiring. Yeah, no, seriously, it's literally because of that. So Wellington, if you guys are from Wellington, if you maybe are, you know that the kind of recruitment for good, smart IT folk in Wellington is tough. It's tough everywhere, right? But if we're just restricted to Wellington, we're fighting with, you can name the other companies that we fight with when it comes to hiring smart people, and we're of course the best. But we only have a limited number of spaces in Wellington, so they get the kind of the others that we don't hire. I'm joking. I love those guys. But yeah, Auckland presents a whole new opportunity for us to hire smart folk, and as does Christchurch. And we went down to Christchurch and set up an office a year after the quake, and a lot of people were interested in working with TradeMe, and it was really, I'm a Cantabrian, so it was really great to be able to set up an office down there. and you know, provide a workplace for those folks. Any other questions? Yes? No, just Wellington, sorry. Although Wellington, we're about to move into a new building in about 9 months, and we've got multiple slides in that office. So, yeah, come and visit. Any other questions? Yes? Managers. No, we're quite a flat structure at TradeMe. So I look after dev and test, and I kind of operate as a product owner and sort of jump in when necessary. So I guess I'm a manager, but I'm also kind of part of the team. I'm a pig, as it were. And then above me, there's a guy who looks after all of tech, and he's far too busy, and then it's a CEO. So there's not like a huge layer of middle management that kind of gets in the way and does stuff. We try and cut that out. And usually the managers, what you think of as managers, exist in other parts of the business where they are running teams that maybe do our commercial sales and marketing exercises and things like that. And they typically are involved they're interested in what we do. They have certainly a say in the roadmaps, but they don't kind of get involved and say, thou shalt do what I've asked. And yeah. We do have product owners who aren't necessarily managers. And we are actually looking for product owners at the moment. We don't have enough of them. It's a very scarce resource, which is why I'm doing it for a bunch of different teams. But yeah, we do have product owners, and that's a key part of our squads, but not necessarily managers. Anyone else? Going once? Yes. Great question. So we have a development architecture group that sits and meets every kind of 2 weeks, and they're made up of our senior developers typically, and our testers, and a few others from around tech. And we have a code review process that is baked into all of the work we do, which Dave and Ben talked about a little bit. But if it's anything weird and fruity, like we're going to do this thing and we really want to kind of re-architect this whole system within TradeMe, at that point, then the dev architect group will kind of get together and say, is this a good idea? Does this fit in with what other areas of the business are doing? And we have kind of one of our senior developers just chairs that dev architecture group, and he's kind of making sure that we're not doing one thing over here that is directly opposed to a team over here, and just to make sure there's harmony in our architecture. But because we all pretty much work on the same solution, you can kind of tell what's going on, as long as we keep our branching and merging to up to date. All right, I need to show the slide. You can follow me on Twitter. You can find me at that email address. And that's it. TechEd is over. Thank you very much.